What is going on, guys, and welcome to CSS tutorial. And in this video we're going to talk about pseudo classes. And if actually you remember, when we were dealing with the links, we were using a selector. So let's say that I would create a link over here, and I'm just going to say that href, and href is going to be blank, and over here I'm just going to say a link. But if you remember that when we went actually back to CSS and we said a option that, let's say that as we're hovering, we selected a like this, and then we wrote hover, or we said link, or we said visited. So, and remember when I was telling you that those are actually pseudo classes. And what I mean by pseudo classes, well, if we go back over here, and if I just let's say create a simple div, right? And I'm gonna say a div, and over here I would say that I would use the quick edit, and I would add a new rule, and I would say the div is gonna have a simple background color. Let's say, I don't know, aqua, right? But obviously I would need to create a width and a height for them, right? So this is gonna be what, 50 pixels, right? And height also 50 pixels, something like this, right? So I have a simple div. However, if I keep going and if I write over here div, and I use the same things that we used with link, and I over here write hover, see what happens. And I would say background color. I would say background color would be, let's say, aquamarine, right? Like this. So we save it, and you can see what happens. I mean, I didn't pick the best color. I think I should have picked something more noticeable. So let's make red. Save, and we see right now, as you can see, as I'm hovering the div, it's actually turning red. And what you can see right now, that it's not those, we're using them on links, those pseudo classes, but you can actually use them on different elements. And I want to show you also a very cool little like tooltip that we could make. So let's say that I'm just going to delete this div for now, and I'm going to delete everything in a main as always, just so it's not in our way. And I'm going to go back to the index over here, HTML. And in this case, I'm just going to create a simple div. And I'm going to say that this div is going to have a paragraph within the div. And within that paragraph is going to be hello there. And over here, I'm going to write that in the text, I'm going to say, where are you? So I have two texts here. One is inside that paragraph. And if I go over here, and if I say that I would want this a paragraph to have a background color yellow. So we go over here. The background color is yellow. And the next thing I would want probably some padding. Padding to be 20 pixels. And the last thing that I would want is actually display, and I would write none. So I'd actually hide this paragraph essentially. So I'm just going to save this over here, and I would go over here to the div, and I would actually open up a new rule. And over here within that new rule, I would write div hover. So as I'm hovering the div, I would want the paragraph, because that's what I'm selecting, actually to be display and to be display block, right? So this is what I would want my paragraph to do as I'm hovering over. So you can see that as I'm hovering over there, it right away appears, right? Hovering over appears. And let me also show you how we can actually connect the classes with divs, right? So right now you can see that I have one div, right? Let's say that I would copy this, and I would just paste it. Now we can also make sure that we can use a CSS class with a div, with a pseudo class, meaning I don't want both of these divs doing the same thing, right? So let's say I just would want this one to do, this div to act this way, right? So what I could do is I could go to quick edit, and I believe this is going to be new rule. I don't want a new rule. I'm just going to go back, and you know what, I didn't set any class. So over here I would have to write a class, and I would say, I don't know, X, very basic. I'm just going to call my class X. And if I go to main CSS, you can see that over here right now I have a rule for both divs, right? But because I created a class X, I can just select only the div that's actually appearing in the class X. So if I just save this, and if we go back to index.html, and now we just have to refresh it, you can see that only when I'm hovering over the first one, actually the paragraph is appearing, because I had this class X over here, and I actually used this class to actually select this paragraph within that div. Now let me show you one last thing, and I need to come back in order to do that. So I'm just gonna delete this, and I'm gonna go over here, and I'm gonna say that I'm gonna delete this again, and I'm gonna create some divs. Let's say one div, and I'm just gonna create like 5 paragraphs over here. So I'm just gonna say hello there, and I'm just gonna basically copy this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's say that I would want to select just this first paragraph. Let's just this first, right? Well, how would I do that? Well, technically I can add the class, right? But we could also do it with the pseudo class. So I would have to write a paragraph over here. That would be the element that I would want, and I would need to write over here first child. And as you already noticed, it's actually these pseudo classes are pre-written for you, meaning you cannot just come up with your own pseudo class and then expect the browser to do something, right? It obviously needs to be something that it's already made, and obviously we're not going to be covering all of them, but I mean, in my opinion, these are very interesting ones, so that's why I'm covering these ones. So now you can see that I'm selecting the paragraph who is actually the first child of the div. That's the explanation, right? It's not something within the paragraph. I'm actually selecting this paragraph as a first child. And also one really interesting one is a nth child like this. So we write like this, and we can actually put in parentheses which child it is. So we can put 2, 3, 4, and however many paragraphs we have. This is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.